Hey Saints, I hope that you're doing well, and I am so excited to bring you this August Bible summary. August has been a crazy and awesome month of Bible reading for us, and it's been a very prophetic month. It is within the context of August that we've read the bulk of the book of Isaiah, all of the book of Jeremiah and Lamentations, and have gotten into Ezekiel. And so, where we've read all or part of 3 of the 4 major prophets, with Daniel to follow in September. And so, it's been an exciting book, and I want to talk a little bit about what we've read during this past week so you can review, or perhaps you can just watch this and catch up with what we're doing in September. And so, starting off, in Isaiah chapter 18, where we're starting, we encounter Isaiah in the midst of oracles, but finally those oracles turn from oracles of destruction to oracles of peace. In particular, in chapter 19, there's a really amazing one that talks about peace connections and even a highway connecting Egypt, Assyria, which is now Iraq, and Israel. And just thinking about today, I mean, what if there were this wonderful peace and connection and interchange between Egypt, Iraq, and Israel? I mean, how different our world would be. And so, as I read Isaiah chapter 19, that moved me both for then and also for now. Moving along, we encounter Isaiah in the midst of some of the final kings of Israel, and in chapters 37 and 38, we are reinserted into the narrative, and so we see that during this time is during the reign of Hezekiah, who was one of the last good kings of Israel. And then from Isaiah 40, we enter the period, the part of the book that is most celebrated. Isaiah 40 is where we hear these words, "Comfort, O comfort my people." There are many Advent hymns and prayers from salvation that come from the book of Isaiah, starting in 40 through the end. In 42, we hear about my servant, a life to the nations, God's servant who bears our sins and will save us all. This servant was the people of Israel collectively, and those of us who believe in Jesus have also come to understand these words as describing Jesus fairly well. In Isaiah 55, there's an invitation to abundant life that I invite you to check out because it's awesome. And in 61, we have Arrington's favorite part of the Bible, where we hear good news of deliverance, where Jesus would later quote on in the New Testament, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he anointed me to bring good news to the oppressed," and so on and so forth. And so lots of exciting things as we close out Isaiah. However, the ending is kind of intense. The ending essentially points to eternal hell for some of those who aren't with it. And I'll kind of just quote it as best as I can. It says, Isaiah 66:24, the last verse. It says, "And they shall go out and look in the dead bodies of the people who've rebelled against me. For their worm shall not die, their fire shall not be quenched, and there shall be an abhorrence to all flesh." So lots of salvation out there, but apparently not so good things for those who aren't down. So that's Isaiah. And then we get to Jeremiah. And we pick up Jeremiah during the kingship of Josiah, who was the last sort of good king of Israel. And it was after Josiah that the people gave way and went off to exile. And what I love is that in the call of Jeremiah, God tells him, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." And I hope each and every one of you will hear God telling that to you, that before you were formed in the womb, God knew you, God loved you, God had purposes for you. That's awesome. In Jeremiah 8, we have him asking the question, is there no balm in Gilead? Is he so upset at all the horrible things that will happen to his people? We know that God's people, the slaves who wrote the Negro Spirituals, said there is a balm in Gilead, which I love. Jeremiah 20 kind of shows just how defiant Jeremiah was. He was put in stocks. He was punished for all the bad news he was bringing to the people, and he was still so defiant. He was still prophesying, while other prophets may have gotten silent or something like that, he just let it out. In Jeremiah 28, there's a interesting story where Jeremiah put on a yoke to kind of demonstrate physically to the people that they would be enslaved. Another prophet, who wasn't a good one, Hananiah, breaks the yoke and he prophesies, no, things will be okay, and then he dies. And so it's pretty crazy. In Jeremiah 29, there's one of my favorite parts of the whole book, and really the whole Bible, where in a letter to the exiles, he instructs them to build houses, plant gardens, and seek the welfare of the city where they can find themselves in Babylon. And for me, I think this is great really, really great advice. At the end of the day, maybe we like where we are, maybe we don't. Maybe we feel like we had choice, maybe we don't. And God's words to them and to us is wherever we are, set up roots, feed yourself, create joy for yourself and others, and seek the welfare of where you are, and things will go well with you. Those are words by which I live my life as well. There's a covenant in chapter 31 of Jeremiah that you should check out. And in Jeremiah 40, there's a short little time of peace before he gets dragged off to Egypt and everything goes bad. So there we are. Jeremiah starts off sort of towards the end of the monarchy, ends up in exile himself, and there we are. After that, we have the book of Lamentations, which is really just a couple of verses where Jeremiah is looking upon the devastated city. And for me, the book of Lamentations is particularly poignant as in the wake of Hurricane Ida. And so if you are one who likes to reflect on things in real life using scriptures, and Louisiana, New Orleans, those places are important to you, I invite you to check out Lamentations and see sort of where his lament over the devastated city might resonate with you. And so that's the book of Lamentations. And then finally, towards the end of this past month, we entered the book of Ezekiel. Now, Ezekiel, unlike Jeremiah and Isaiah, starts off within the exiles, and he has this crazy vision with the cherubim, and they're flying, and they don't look to the right and to the left, and there's a huge wheel. And just check out the visions. It's amazing. Just the first couple chapters of Ezekiel. And for those of you who are artistic, I invite you to even read it and try to draw it out as you do it. If you do that, please take a picture of that drawing and send it to me. I'd love to share it with everybody else. But anyway, the last couple things I'll mention about Ezekiel is that Ezekiel, like Isaiah, and like Jeremiah especially, did a lot of physical prophecy. And so in chapter 4, he laid in his left side for a long time to demonstrate something. In chapter 5, he cut off all his hair, and he sent it in 3 places to signify the people who would burn in the city, those who would die by the sword, and those who were dispersed. And so a lot of Ezekiel's prophecy involved him doing things to himself, and those weren't always fun things. At the end of the day, I'm very happy to be a lover of God, a child of God, and I'm kind of glad that I wasn't chosen to be a prophet of God, because looking at especially Jeremiah and Ezekiel, it doesn't look like that much fun. But anyway, that is our reading for the last month. I hope you enjoyed it, or have enjoyed this video anyway. And yeah, September is going to be a big one. We'll finish Ezekiel, we'll read through almost all the major prophets and the minor prophets, and we'll be set up to start the New Testament soon afterwards. So I'll see you soon.